Chris Cooley is regarded as the best tight end in Aggie history. As a senior, he led the nation's tight ends with 62 catches for 732 yards. That led to the Washington Redskins taking him in the third round of the 2004 draft, and in 9 years in the NFL, he made the Pro Bowl twice and set a franchise record for tight ends with 429 catches, over 4,700 yards, and 33 touchdowns for the Redskins.
So when I first found out I was going to the Hall of Fame, I thought it was a joke. So I do a radio show and we play pranks on each other. And I'm terrible at answering my cell phone, answering calls, and Doug had called and had gotten through to my co-host at a radio station. He said, they called, you're gonna go in the Hall of Fame. And I don't like to get pranked. So I said, okay, yeah, funny one. Good one, Kevin. Kevin Sheehan's my co-host. He said, no, really, this is the guy's number, you need to call back. And he said 435, and I said, I think it's probably real now. I mean, he could have looked up the area code. And so I called back and had a real conversation. I didn't think they took it a step further to create a fake person. But I was really honored. I felt really special because this is where I went to high school. I grew up watching Aggie football games as a kid. I remember moments, like important moments, walking out on the field and getting autographs by some of the players as a 12, 13-year-old kid. It was the only school that offered me a scholarship. It was the only idea I had ever going anywhere, and it worked out, and it worked out in a great way for me. Yeah, I played special teams for the most part through the first half of the season. We had a lot of injuries in the middle part of the year that year, and so I moved to defensive end, which I thought was the greatest thing in the world. I was on the field, I was playing, I had a couple sacks. I had a sack in Boise. I was 225 pounds, starting as a defensive end in the last couple games. I'd started for 2 games, I'd played, I'd had some sacks, I'd made some plays, and we had the end of the year meeting, and they said, you're gonna move back to tight end. I said, no, I'm not. I said, yeah, you're gonna move back to tight end. And then for a year and a half, I didn't play much at all at tight end. So there's a lot that preceded the senior year. I played with Casey Papinga, who was one of my best friends. And we had a lot of fun together. We actually had some fun pranks together. We used to go catch carp and put them in line lockers, the bottom shoe part of lockers. And we would take the carp in live from coolers and put them in people's lockers so they'd open their shoe compartment and the carp would be swimming around in their locker. So Casey and I were pretty close. He was the other tight end. And I'll be honest, as any competitor would, there were moments my sophomore and junior year where I envisioned him falling on some ice or something and spraining his ankle so I could play. There were a lot of nights that I sat at home wondering why I'm not playing, why they couldn't use 2 tight ends, how I could be involved. I wanted to play. My junior year, we played Boise State. He fumbled. Coach Juice, our secondary coach now, the Utah State secondary coach now, picked it up and returned it for a touchdown. I found that out over this weekend, that was the guy. I thanked him for that moment. He picked it up at the end of the half. He returned it for a touchdown. Our offensive coordinator at the time, Bob Cole, said some Bob Cole-like words to Casey Papinga, and I played the second half of that game. After a simple Cooley, you're in. Cooley's finally in. Whatever, let's see what he can do. I think I had 5 or 6 catches in that game for 80 yards, and then I think I had 100 yards receiving every game after that for the last 5. And at the end of that year, they do the pro day, the scouts come. One scout came to Utah State at that point, and he pulled me aside and he said, I put a 5th round draft grade on you, so you're going to start getting some calls from some agents and some folks. So just so you know, expect that. And I did, and then it kind of evolved to my senior year, and I turned it up a little bit, knowing that, to be honest. I wanted to play. We weren't as talented as we'd been in the past couple years with guys like Jose and Kevin and Emmett White, who had been here the couple years before me. So I became kind of the main focal point that year. And I had some big games. Early, I played a big game against Nebraska. And it just happened. It was a take advantage of fleeting opportunity moment for me, which I learned at that point really in my life is that opportunities are so important, but they are so minimal for some people. And if you don't understand the moment and understand the opportunity, a lot of times you can't achieve success. When I was picked 81st in the draft, I was just thrilled that I was going to go play for the Washington Redskins. I'd really never been back east. I didn't know anything about the organization. I knew that Joe Gibbs was there. He called. My brother actually put Joe Gibbs on hold for 10 minutes while he could talk to his friends. Finally, he said, well, someone's on the phone for you, and it was Joe. And yeah, I remember thinking, this is unbelievable. And in the first offseason, I bought a house, and some of the players there said, well, you're just drafted. Why would you buy a house? I said, well, I'm going to be here. I got drafted here. And as opportunity wasn't immediate at Utah State or at Logan High School for that matter, it was for the Redskins, and I was starting in my first season. And it was incredible. If I didn't become the best tight end in Redskins history, I became a memorable part of Redskins history. And it created a family for me, a community. My best friends in the world are still involved in that organization. It's my home. It's been amazing. Every part of that time I've spent there has been amazing, and there was a loyalty that I felt to that organization as there was to Utah State when I was here for 4 years, and I didn't go anywhere else. Played for one team, and I've worked in the same building since I've moved there. Do a radio show there, same stuff every day, travel with the team. It's the coolest job in the world.